I'm all in. Welcome back to the vlog. Before we get into today's episode, I just want to take a brief moment to talk about some of the things I'm doing with the vlog. I decided to put a lot more effort into the quality and the content and the number of vlogs that will be coming out in the future. I'm kind of treat it more like a full-time job, vlogging. So I started out with a conversation with Andrew Locke, and we were talking about what we liked about some vloggers and how they edit and how they do things. And we both agreed that PokerBros came up with a brilliant idea of color coding the positions at the poker table. And, you know, green for a good position like the button or the cutoff or the hijack, and red for a bad position like, you know, in the blinds or under the gun, and then yellow for in between. So I thought that would be a good idea, and I'm going to incorporate his idea into my vlogs to help people identify the benefits of position. I thought, yeah, I'll incorporate it. And I plan to incorporate other ideas and other techniques that might be helpful. So with all that being said, sit back, relax, enjoy. Here it comes. We've been playing for about 40 minutes, haven't had much to play, lost about $100 during that time. Here we pick up ace, king of diamonds in the low jack. There's a $6 straddle. We open for a raise to 20. We get called by the player on the button and also the player in the big blind. So we're going three ways to a flop, and the flop comes out 9-7-5 with two spades. Definitely does not hit our hand. The big blind checks. I decide to check, and the button also checks. So we see a free turn card, which turns out to be a 7 of diamonds. The only real player I'm worried about having a 7 in this spot is the player in the big blind, and after he checks I feel pretty good about my hand, but I'm not going to put any more money in because I don't want to have to face a raise from a player who might put me to the test. River card comes out as a deuce of clubs. Definitely shouldn't be hitting either one of my opponents, but now the player in the big blind decides to take a stab at it for $40. I think he's doing this with hands like ace high, and is just trying to get me off my particular hand of ace king. He does roll over ace jack, and we take it down with our ace king. We go card dead for the next 40 minutes until we find two jacks from the hijack. We've been dwindling down our stack quite a bit. We're a little over $320 at this point. There's a under the gun raiser to 16. A player calls, and then it comes to us, and with two jacks, I definitely feel like I should be 3-betting this, so I make it 75. Only the initial raiser from under the gun puts in the call, and the other player folds out. He seems rather comfortable putting in the extra money, so I'm thinking he has a fairly decent sized hand, maybe ace king, possibly ace queen, but more likely hands like queens, jacks, tens. I figured with aces or kings he would probably repop me to get out the extra player. The flop comes out queen high with a 6 and a 3. So I think the best play with this kind of flop after the player checks to me is either bet really small or check it back, because you're not really that fearful of overcards, and if he has a hand like ace queen or pocket queens, he's definitely not going to be folding. And he has ace king, you can get a little value with a small bet at this point, but you really shouldn't have to be afraid of too many overcards. Instead, I make the donkey move of just shoving all in, because I figure, hey, I'm going to represent like I have kings or aces here, and maybe he'll lay down a hand like king, queen.
I can't watch this.
Well, that didn't work out too well, especially when the turn card comes as a king. I figure I'm really dead. But he had pocket queens all along, so I really feel like a donkey. So I punted off the remaining chips of mine and bought 500 more, and pick up ace jack offsuit on the button. Undergun player who has only about $100 in chips in front of him opens for $14. It's folded around to the player in the hijack. He puts in the call. I decided this is a good hand to go ahead and put some pressure on. So I put in a big raise to 75. The player who is in the undergun position goes all in for 104. The other player puts in the call, and unfortunately, the only thing I can do is just put in the call also. So we're going to go three ways to this flop with 335 in the center. Hoping to get a little bit lucky, and the flop comes ace, deuce, six, rainbow. So excellent flop. If my other opponent who's not all in had a hand like ace, king, or ace, queen, I'm sure they would have raised themselves. So I'm thinking I'm pretty good here. So I just jam because this player has been playing fairly loose and is calling very light in some situations. Anyway, he goes into the tank for a while before finally deciding on a call. So we got all the money in. I think I'm ahead. We just need a clean run out. It comes 9 of diamonds and a 5 of spades. Looks pretty clean to me. I roll over my hand and it's good. So we're going to win at least a $470 side pot, and the other player ends up mucking his hand, and we get $335 from the main. So $800 headed our way. We're under the gun, +1 with king queen suited. We open for a raise to 15, end up getting 4 callers for the 15. So we're going to end up going 5 ways to this flop with 75 in the pot, and the flop comes out queen 5-3. There are 2 hearts on the board, and I'm a little concerned about that. I decided to check this here, and the main reason I did is because I don't want to always be firing when I have a made hand, and sometimes with this much action, I'd rather get some more information about my opponent's hand, and I can find out more information by the way they bet. So it gets checked to the player on the button, who's a very competent player. He puts in a bet for $65. Obviously, I have an easy call in this pot. The other player in the cutoff goes all in for like $3 less. Turn card comes is probably the most interesting card of all. It's the Queen of Hearts. So it makes the front door flush, but it also gives me 3 queens. I decide to check this over to the player on the button, and they bet 120. Now, he can be doing this with a couple different hands. He could have a flush, he can have a queen, he can have a pocket pair somewhere above the 5s and is trying to defend his 2 pair. I think I just need to put in the call here. A raise would be way too aggressive, and it just has to be a call. So I call, I check over the blank card of a 6 of clubs. He checks it back. I roll over my king queen, and he mucks, and we end up taking down this pot also. So starting to run a little bit better now. We played for another hour and a half, didn't pick up anything too interesting, so we ended up cashing out and went home and started coming back the next day, where we sat for about 20 or 30 minutes before we finally find a pair of aces in the big blind. There were 2 limpers, and a player on the button raises to 20. Naturally, I'm going to be 3-betting this, so I make it 75. It's folded back around to the player on the button, who thinks for a moment and then puts in the call. Flop comes out queen, 6, deuce with 2 hearts. That's a good flop for our particular hand. We should be getting action from someone with a queen or someone with a flush draw. Not too worried about pocket deuces. There is a chance they might have pocket 6s. I bet out $60, looking for some action from a queen. My opponent thinks for a little bit and decides on putting in a raise to $160. Well, to put in this raise, he either has a very big hand or a flush draw. Very big hands are pocket queens and pocket 6s. I don't think you would have just flatted with queens, so that's down to pocket 6s. And since we don't have the ace of hearts, there's a good possibility that he has a flush draw, the ace-high flush draw. So I think the only real play here is to go all in. I'll get max value from all those draws. If he outruns me, he outruns me. So I jam. My opponent has to call $224 more. He's getting a pretty good price to do so. There's a $700 pot. So I think he's going to be putting the chips in, and he does. And we're off to see a run out. I tell him and show him that I had aces. We see a turn card of an 8 and a river of a jack of spades, and he showed that he had jack 10 of hearts. I'm in the big blind with ace king suited. There were 3 limpers, and I'm going to go ahead and put a raise in. So I raised 30 more on top, and everyone called. So They only have a $3 hand when they first limp in, but they have a $33 hand once I raise. Flop comes out, ace, king, 8 with 2 diamonds. Obviously, it's a very good flop for our particular hand, and we have players that are interested in calling large bets because they call $30 pre-flop with the hand they limped in with. So I bet 90, thinking that I'll get action from somebody with a ace, maybe somebody with a flush draw. Who knows? I might even get action with someone with just a bare king. I bet 90. Player goes all in for the 90. The other 2 players ended up folding. So I turn my cards over, tell him I have ace king. He does show that he has king jack of diamonds. So he has a lot of outs, and it comes 5 of hearts and a 6 of spades. So we dodge all his outs and we take down this $300 pot. So our stack has grown to over $1,000 at this point. Player under the gun puts in a $6 straddle and it's folded to me. In the cutoff, I decided to raise to 21. Don't ask me why 21. Usually I would just raise it to 25. But for some reason I raised to 21. And only the player under the gun puts in the call. Flop comes queen, jack, 3. He checks it over to me. Second pair, decent kicker. I'm going to put in a c-bet. So I'd go 21 again. He puts in a quick call. Turn card comes is pretty good. It's a king of clubs. So I got 2 paired now. He checks it over. I'm going to go again for value, this time for $50. This is where things get a little bit strange because he decides that he was going to check raise me, and it was a min check raise to 100. I'm trying to figure out what kind of hands he would do this with. Maybe he has something like 9-10, flopped an open-ender and made the straight and is trying to squeeze a little extra value. Maybe he made a pair of kings. Maybe he has something like king jack. Anyway, I decided just to call, and since I'm in position, I can see his actions on the river. The river card comes is probably the worst one in the deck. It's a queen of hearts. And now my opponent checks to me again. I'm a little confused of his play. If he has a king, we're chopping. If he has a queen, he has me beat. If he has a straight, he has me beat. So I check it back, and he shows ace queen offsuit. So interesting line he took there. Had me quite confused, and he has the chips. There's a $10 open, and another player puts in the call. I look down at 2 9s from the cutoff. Decided to raise it to 50. Should probably go at least 60 in this spot, but I give him a good price. He gets folded back around to the player who called the $10 open in middle position, and he puts in the call. This player is very active, and he likes to gamble. So I'm happy to get some action from him. And we head off to the flop with $114 in the pot. And the flop comes ace, 8, 7 with 2 spades. Not a good flop for my particular hand. Got to be concerned that the player has an ace. He fires out for $60. And normally I would just fold this hand, but this is the type of player who would fire out and represent an ace. I figure I need to defend my hand at least 1 out of every 10 times, just so that people don't automatically fire into me every time an ace comes on the flop. So I put in a very loose call, looking to pick up some equity on the turn. It appears that the Hold'em gods are in my favor because the turn card comes is a magical 9 of spades. So it does complete the flush, it does complete some straights, but let's face it, it's the best card I could have caught besides a 9 of clubs. My opponent now shoves all in, and of course I'm going to be calling just because I got a set, and I think I have him beat. If he had us an ace, he's way behind now. So I put in the quick call, and we get to see a run out, which comes jack of clubs, and my opponent rolls over ace 10. So played a little loose, got lucky, and then got unlucky. That's poker. There's one early limper, and I look down at 10-9 suited, so I raised to 20. It's folded around to the player in the small blind who's a competent player, and he decides to raise, and he makes it 60. The other players end up folding out, and now it's back to me. Now, this is not a great hand to go against a competent player, but I do have position on him, and if I do hit my hand, it's going to be very well disguised. I decided to make the call for the extra 40, and we're going to see a flop heads up with 126 in the pot. Flop comes out ace 8 4 with 2 clubs. Of course, when I see a flop like this, I'm completely done with my hand. If my opponent even breathes on the pot, I think I'm just going to end up folding. But this is the problem about being out of position for my opponent and the benefit of being in position for me. My opponent, when he raises, if he's doing it with a large pocket pair like kings, queens, jacks, he's going to really fear a flop that comes ace high. I think the best play for him is to do a small continuation bet and fold out all my hands that are like mine. But he decided to check it. And now it's on me, and I have a couple different options. Number one option is to take the betting lead by betting my hand and representing an ace, putting pressure on his big pairs, if he has them. But a competent player will also check back some aces in this spot just to protect his range from me doing exactly that. The second option is what I chose, which is just to be extremely passive and check it back and surrender when he fires on the next street. And the reason I chose my passive option is mainly because of my stack size. I don't have a big enough stack to really put pressure on this particular opponent. If I fire and I have to follow through with 3 barrels, I don't have 3 barrels in my stack. I have to do like small bet, big bet. So I check it back and we get a turn card of a jack of hearts, which is a wonderful card. And my opponent checks it back again. So now I'm thinking he has either kings or queens in this spot. And of course, I'm not going to try to bluff him here, even though it's possible. I'd rather just take my free draw and see if I can hit something. If I get lucky, I can hit a queen, he can make a set, and I can get stacks in. So we're going to see a river card, and it comes Queen of Spades. Can you believe it? This is great. My opponent, who's lost value all through this hand when he was in the lead, decides that now's a good time to bet $100. Obviously, he made a set of queens here. I just decide, okay, I'm all in. So I shove. He snap calls. I show my 10-9, and he is obviously upset, probably with the run out, but also probably because he didn't see bet or bet the turn and let me get there for free. So I get a double up, and I'm very fortunate to win this hand. As I said, if he see bet the flop, this hand would have been over right there. All right, we're under the gun, open for 15 with 2 aces. It gets folded around to an action player, and one other player puts in the call from the big blind. So we're headed 3 ways to this flop. Flop comes out 6-6 deuce with 2 diamonds. We do not have the ace of diamonds, and really doesn't hit our hand very hard. And knowing that there's an action player behind me on the button, I decided to check to them and let them take the lead. They ended up betting $16, a very small bet for this particular size pot. I think he's just feeling me out, seeing what I do. So I put in the call, and I check it to him on the turn when the 5 of diamonds comes. Definitely not a good card, hits his range much harder than mine. And he bets 26 this time. Again, I'm just going to put in the call, see what happens on the river. The river is the deuce of spades. Now, if he had a deuce, he has me beat. If he has a 6, he has me beat. If he has a diamond, he has me beat. He has a straight, he has me beat. But I don't think he has any of those things. And he decides to size up a little bit and bet $86. Of course, I am not going anywhere. This is the same player who I doubled up earlier when I had my pocket 9s. And I just don't think he has it. So I put in the call. He shows 10-8 of hearts and says, man, I can't get you off anything. Yeah, you're not going to get me off aces, that's for sure. As for the results, well, we're up a little over $800 over the last 2 days, so that's good. Really appreciate you guys watching and tuning in. And if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. It does help out the channel. Of course, I made some mistakes along the way on this 2-day venture. The pocket jacks, that was just awful. No real excuse for that. I just decided to just go with the hand. Maybe out of frustration of the way the day was started off. But still, no excuse. It was horrendous. Also played a little loose with those pocket 9s. I did get lucky on the turn, but unlucky on the river. So I guess it all balanced out. So until next time, good luck at the tables, and we'll see you back here soon.